Hi guys, Darth Deuces here, back with another Transformers figure review, and today taking a look at a figure that was highly anticipated for me. It is the Transformers Legacy United Vector Prime from Transformers Cybertron. I'm always happy when we get new Prime characters that aren't Optimus Prime. I love getting new Optimus Primes, don't get me wrong, but I also like getting other primes in the lineage of the primes or whatever you want to talk about. I want to get like a collection of every or not every, but a lot, as many as the different named primes as I can. And so Vector Prime. From Transformers Cybertron, a very cool series that I like a fair amount and really like the designs from. And I never owned a ton of the toys from Transformers Cybertron, but one I did own was Vector Prime. And I think his character is really cool, and I really love his design. The original toy. I still have my original toy. I have a couple versions of it actually, and we'll do some comparisons. But I don't know if skeptical is the right word, but I was really excited when this got announced, and then they revealed it, and I was a little wary because this figure is actually a decently heavy retool of the Legacy G-Axis or J-Axis. I don't know exactly what it's supposed to say. I think it's supposed to be G-Axis from G2. And I actually do have that figure, so I'll do a comparison there as well. I got it for like pretty cheap. I think I got it for less than what a deluxe goes for. I don't know, they just made a ton of him, or he just wasn't super popular maybe, which is kind of a shame because it is actually a really good mold. And if you don't have G-Axis, I actually recommend track him down and get him for pretty cheap. But yeah, I was a little, wasn't sure, but I got the figure in hand, and there are some things I wish they would have done differently, but overall, I do think the mold works decently well for the character, and the figure I think is pretty great. But anyways, let's take a closer look at the figure himself. First at the head sculpt, which I absolutely love. That is definitely Vector Prime, no doubt about it. Got the nice painted eyes, lots of really nice paint apps. You do have more accurate colors than the original Hasbro release of Vector Prime had. Takara had the proper paint apps, but the Hasbro one was a bit different for some reason. Or that's just how things were back then. But I love the head sculpt, the nice like cyan blue for the face, and I love the details and the sculpted details of the chin and whatnot. Makes him look kind of older, which I think looks super cool. And the helmeted look looks great. Nice gold paint there, very cool. Then the torso, always like this design here too as well. You got the big like circular chest like cavity there with a nice detail, which looks nice, and all that sculpted detail there with all the gold highlights and this like burgundy reddish color looks really cool. The shoulders look really nice as well. However, I will say I do kind of wish they made them just a little bigger. On the original figure, they were fairly large, and they don't look bad here, but for the transformation they hinge down, and you can see there's still a decent amount of like clearance. They could have added a bit more length and bulk too, so I kind of wish they would have done that. Not a big deal, but still something to consider. I do kind of like that they actually lock in. The original figure, they're just on hinge joints, and I guess that does allow you to be able to like adjust them how you want, I guess, but I kind of just prefer them locking in like it does on this figure, just they're not always hinging around and being out of place. But the forearms, they are taken straight from G-Axis. I will say this is one of the spots where I have a bit of critique. They're fine, they look fine, but on the original figure, which I'll show, he had like much more like ornate looking like forearm guards, and those one looked a lot better and also are more accurate to the show. One thing you'll find is that for any faults that the Cybertron figures had, they were almost always pretty accurate to the CG models they use in the show. And this, well, it still looks very close. It does have differences because of the reuse of the G-Axis mold, where it's just not as accurate to that CG model, which doesn't bother me too much, honestly, but it is something worth noting. But he does have 5mm peg holes there on the forearms, just like the G-Axis figure. And then you've got the hands looking nice as well. You've got the cross piece, which does have new sculpting and some nice paint apps. I was thinking maybe I wouldn't like the smooth roundness of the G-Axis upper legs for Vector Prime, but I actually dig it quite a bit. I think it works actually pretty nicely. And then you do have the legs, you do have that wiring detail and whatnot. And I think that these work okay. Like they kind of fit the aesthetic, but they're significantly different looking than from the original uh, toy and the original CG model. And it does make them kind of inaccurate, or not kind of, they are inaccurate. They just don't look like this. And another thing is like the feet are just taken from G-axis, but on the original toy and model, he had like guns that came out of his toes or area or whatever. And he doesn't have that either. As things worth noting. Also, another thing worth noting is that on G-axis, he had these little like bat wings that hinged out here, and this figure doesn't have them, so they just took them off and left the little pin slots there on the leg. They're not actually as distracting as you'd think they'd be, but they are there. And again, it just kind of feels like supports. They could have retooled these lower legs. I think that would have been nice, but this is what it is. But overall, pretty clean. He does have the wing thingies here that hang off the back, and I do like how this looks. Kind of creates like that caped look that the original toy had, but he doesn't have the big like half the ship hanging off his back, which I don't know, from a toy perspective this is better, I think, but the half the ship hanging off his back did have that kind of cape effect on the original figure, and it's also again a part that was actually part of the CG model. So this again is kind of not kind of, I keep saying kind of, it's inaccurate, you know. I don't know. I do find it's kind of weird that I think every other Cybertron figure from Legacy has gotten a whole new mold, but for some reason for Vector Prime, they decided to retool them. And again, I think it works decently well, but it just has like some inaccuracies and just some things I wish they would have done differently. And I don't know if they should have just done more heavy retooling or they should have just done a whole new mold. Because I kind of feel like this kind of more fits a generation like G1E, like Generations Vector Prime, or like if you want to have a Vector Prime for your more G1, like IDW, I don't know, kind of centric display. This figure kind of is better for that than it would be for a more Cybertron show accurate display, because like I said, there are some significant inaccuracies, but whether that bugs you or not, it's kind of up to you. For me, I don't care so much. It's still close enough, but for some people it might be a bit more of a bother. I can definitely understand that. But in terms of articulation, he does have a ball joint at the neck, so he looks down a bit. Doesn't really look up a whole lot unless you want to pull the head kind of piece out, which I don't really recommend doing because it looks weird. A little bit of pivot, rotation. The shoulders go out here and then about full 90, which is nice. A swivel at the bicep, or just under the shoulder, I suppose. Single hinge at the elbow that does go past 90. He has swivels at the wrists, and you also have opening fingers, hands, so that's pretty cool. You can adjust these bits, you know, in a few different ways, like a lot of ways if you want to untab them. And then you can actually also rotate these bits as well. So you do get some options there when it comes to how you want to display these bits. They rotate there as well. Does a swivel at the waist. The legs go up very far. They go back about that far. There's a swivel at the thigh there, which is pretty well engineered in my opinion. You can do basically almost a full splits. You do have hinges at the knees that go quite a bit past 90, and then you do have ankles that go up a little bit, go down a little bit, and they do pivot a fair amount. So this figure does have great articulation. Definitely the original figures, the articulation wasn't bad, but this is definitely an upgrade in terms of posability. It's a lot funner to mess with this figure and just pose it than it is with the old toy for sure. In terms of accessories, you've kind of already been seeing it because I didn't take it out of his hand beforehand. But of course, he does have his sword. Straighten him out here. This looks very nice. It's sculpted in this nice blue translucent plastic with some sparklies there. And then you have a handle or hilt, the same kind of color as his reddish, brownish bits. Very nice looking sword, pretty decent size. I do like it. I also like that it's made of a solid plastic and not the soft plastic that the old figures was made out of. And he also does come with his Cyber Planet key with all the different planets there on it. And it does actually attach to the sword if you want to, which I think looks pretty cool. A nice little way to display or store if you don't want to use it in other spots. but it does go on other spots. On the back here, there's a slot. You can just slot the key in if you want to. Or the original toy has a Cyberpunk key slot at his waist to put it in front of him. This one doesn't have that, but to still kind of recreate that effect, he has two little tabs, and there's two little tab holes there. And you can actually tab the Cyberpunk key into his chest to get that look, which is a very cool little feature. Take that out for now. And then the sword, for some reason the handle is on a hinge. I have no idea why it is, but it is. That's something you can do with it. But there was a hole on his back, so if you don't want him holding the sword, you can store that on his back there. No problem. Let's straighten him out here. Get the Cyberpunk in here. I do kind of like this look. It's just kind of cool. I don't know. Put it in his hand, like so. And we'll do the comparison. So here he is with the original Transformers Cybertron Vector Prime. I got this. He came in a 2-pack with Starscream. And you can tell right off the back there's definitely a size difference. This one's a lot bigger, well, not a lot heftier, but it is definitely heftier. This one is like 100% accurate to the CG model that was used in the show, where this one's not. This one uses a much more stark white, where this one's a bit of a grayish white, almost a very, very light gray as opposed to a white. But does have the more accurate looking, like reddish brown instead of just straight up brown. But I still think both these figures have different bits of value. You can see there. This one's posability is definitely more restricted. Like, you only have to swivel at the neck. You got like these ratchets in the shoulders, which are good, and he actually moves it out pretty well. But then like the shoulders kind of like have pretty wide like spaces in the ratchet, so you're kind of limited in what you can do. Like you have his arms like right to his waist, and I kind of want him to have him just out a little bit, but you can't really do that. They have to be way out of it from his waist or really close to his waist. I don't love that a whole lot. But you can kind of see like with the forearms, you've got this nice kind of like plate armor on the forearms, and then here it's just kind of like blocky and not accurate. That's kind of stuff like that. And the same thing with the legs. You can see those gun feet, toes, or whatever. And then just see kind of how different the lower legs are. I do wish they would have tried to go a bit more closer to how this original figure looked in that regard. But this figure still has, has like decent articulation. He definitely wasn't like a slouch for posability. You can move the legs actually quite decently, but no pivots in the ankles, no wrist swivel, and just because of the design, you can pose him. Like, he wasn't a statue, but you had to. It's not as good as the original figure, and doesn't look as natural either, but it's not too bad. This one did come with more stuff. Well, first of all, he had electronic features. Mine, probably the battery's dead. But yeah, like you can like move his arm and it'd like make a slashing sound. He came with the Cyberpunk key, which is a lot nicer looking because it's bigger. But you could like slot it in the front there, kind of like you can do with the other figure, but you have to tab it in. This guy, he had like a firing missile in vehicle mode, and then he also had the sword. You could store it in here, or you can have him hold it. Which I don't have his sword, unfortunately. That's the one accessory I'm missing. This figure is otherwise complete, but I am missing his sword. I hope to someday find a replacement sword for him, but he also came with a minicon. He came with Safeguard. The original figure did, and this new one doesn't come with that, obviously. They're very hesitant to include minicons with figures, which I guess to a certain extent is budget stuff. Like, I can't really expect them to include a fully little mini articulated figure with him, but you could like give the original figure the minicon. You could plug them on. But there's the original figure. And then another one, I have another version of the mold. Here he is with the Universe 2008 Vector Prime, which is also a very cool figure. This one is again almost fully complete, but he's missing the front skirt pieces. And I got him used from a local comic book store, and I never noticed he didn't have the front skirt pieces until I got back home. But it's not a big deal because he might be missing those, but it is not super noticeable. And then he still came with all the other stuff. He came with the mini con. He still had his missile even. He had the key and the sword. So yeah, you can kind of see that they repainted this a number of times. I think there's like a weird looking like yellow orange version. I think they reused the Cybertron Vector Prime mold for an Alpha Trion, for maybe like a BotCon or something. And then there's those two. There's the car version. They got quite a bit of mileage out of that mold. But I guess another figure to compare to, here he is with Optimus. This is the Galaxy upgrade figure from Siege from a number of years ago now. It's kind of crazy how Siege has been so quite a number of years now. But I think these guys look pretty cool together. I think scale decently well. And then here he is with his mold mate G-Axis. And you can see the similarities. The legs, basically from the waist down, they're very similar, just repainted and missing the little bat wing thingies. Even the arms there, you can see. But then the torso, the shoulders, the head, of course. All different. And then very lastly, here he is with, I believe they're of the same wave. Here is the deluxe Cybertron Hotshot, which I think these two both also look very cool together. But that is pretty much it for the robot mode. So let's do vehicle mode. So transformation, I think, is pretty much exactly the same as G-Axis. For whatever reason, I don't know what it is, but it's been a while since I messed with G-Axis, but this guy it seems like he was easier. This one was easier to transform to G-Axis from what I remember, but I think they're exactly the same, so I don't know why I feel that way. But I guess first, you can close the hands if you have them open. You open up the forearms, fold the hands in. And you just fold down the shoulder pads if you want now. And then you can kind of pull the out from the shoulder, like so. You know, to come to the back, I just kind of like loosening these out, rotate these, and getting them ready to go. Then it doesn't really matter. You can go from the bottom or you go to the top, but on the top here, you can pull back the back, fold the head in. You can take the torso, it rotates out, this, fold in, and then you actually rotate this around. And then we'll kind of leave that for now. Go down to the legs, rotate the legs around. Kind of pull these forward, and they kind of do another accordion. They kind of accordion up, which is a fairly common engineering thing with Transformers these days, it seems like. And these little panels on the inside of the leg, you fold them out, and they kind of align with these little tabs there. And you just pull the leg up. Oh, sorry, actually you want to fold the foot forward first, and then you want to pull it up. And then there's a little hole and a little tab there at the engine and the tip of the foot. Tab that in. Kind of keep it actually pointed up for now. I keep forgetting that kind of point, and then just do the same thing here on this leg. Like so. And you can kind of tab these together now if you want. But you want to keep them up just for the time being. We'll keep the arms out, I guess, but pull these forward. Oops. Untab that piece and rotate that down like so. Then you want to bring the legs in, and the edges of the knees go into these little slots here. So get that stuff tabbed in. There we go. You probably have to retab the legs together, but that's not a big deal. And then these bits here, they do actually, there's this little latch or whatever and a little slot, and you just line those up and slot those in. Like like so. And then at the bottom here, fold these in. And you just fold these forearms in. There's these tab holes on the back of the thigh, tabs on the forearms there. And you just tab the arms in. Easy. And then you have Vector Prime in his vehicle mode. And I think this looks pretty good. I like all the paint and some new details that are shown, like the little cockpit area and all the gold. I think it looks really nice. I don't know if there's doing something wrong. It just doesn't like fully align properly. It just feels like the front doesn't fully align all the way, and it doesn't really tab in or anything. So it's a little weird, but not a big deal. You do have the little wing vanes here. Look pretty nice. You can rotate them. You got the thrusters in the back, the little fin and whatnot. Kind of cool little feature is that if you do have the original Minicon Safeguard, he does have this little port here. You can actually fit the original Minicon on this figure if you want. So that's kind of cool. He actually also has the ports on the wings side of the wings here. So if you wanted to plug them on the side, you can do that as well. So kind of fun little gimmick if you have, or Easter egg or whatever, if you have the original Minicon. But not a whole lot to talk about. You can definitely see, or I'll transform G-axis and we'll do a quick comparison. But yeah, there's not a whole lot to talk about. It is a cool looking jet that is definitely similar to his vehicle mode from the original series, but there are some differences. And I will show that now. And I'll take the original figure. His transformation's a lot simpler. So I guess first you rotate the head around and you just flip up the back of the ship to that, and you already have like half the vehicle mode done. But straighten the arms out, straighten the legs out, flip the feet down, pull out the wings things. The arms will peg in to these pegs on the side of his hips, and you just shift down the forearm armor and then fold down the shoulder armor like so. Then you just flip around the legs. They loosely poured into some pegs. And then you can open up the little wing vane things. And there you have the vehicle mode of the original figure, which I think looks also pretty good, honestly. I will say, I think I actually do kind of prefer the vehicle mode on the original figure. It's just kind of cooler. I don't know, it's longer, it's larger. He has the guns on the feet. This is where they come into play. So he's got these little underside guns here, which I think are cool. But yeah, obviously significant. Let's see if I can show this. Significant size difference. Like the older one is definitely a lot bigger. Got a more pronounced area to store for the Minicon to port in, but it is similar to how this one does it. This one does have his whole like torso chest cavity thing showing on the top. This one actually hides it. It's on the bottom. But yeah, it's cool. But yeah, like I said, kind of prefer the old one, vehicle mode in that case, but the new one is pretty cool. I do like it. And then off camera, just transformed G-axis real quick and just give you that comparison. And definitely similar. I do like, though, that Vector Prime does feel different enough. That is nice. I feel like a retool definitely has succeeded for the most part when it does that. But seeing G-axis, I do wish they would have painted these like wire spots a bit. They feel a bit plain, not painted on Vector Prime. But yeah, still pretty cool. Definitely see the similarities, but you can definitely see the differences as well. But there's that. But overall, that is pretty much it, I think. I guess if you want to, I didn't show it, but if you take the cyber key off, you can port the sword in a few different spots here where there's holes on the figure to store the sword if you want, but you know, it doesn't look good. But a weapon storage is always appreciated, kind of thing. Overall, I do think the figure is pretty cool. It is not 100% accurate to the original source material because it is a retool, And I do feel like they could have, at the very least, tooled some more things while still keeping the engineering from G-Axis, to make it a bit more accurate to the show, which they didn't do, which I think is a little unfortunate. I think that is a little unfortunate that Vector Prime is the only one out of the new Cybertron figures so far to not get a whole new mold. I would wonder why Hasbro made that decision, I guess. I think it's a little odd. I do ultimately would have preferred a new mold, but I do think the G-Axis one, if this is the only new Vector Prime we're going to get, I do like that we at least got this one. It does have better posability than the old figure, and proportionally wise, I think looks a little more aesthetically pleasing in that regard as well. And if you wanted to scale with your generation stuff, it's going to scale better with your Chug generation stuff as well there too. Whether you should get this or the original figure, it kind of depends what you're going for, I guess. Obviously, if you're kind of looking for the most accurate looking version from the show, and or you're just doing like an OG Cybertron collection, you're going to want to get the original figure. But that being said, the original figure is, I think, pretty expensive on the aftermarket. Even this normal Hasbro version, I think, is pretty expensive. And then if you want to get the Takara version, which has the more accurate paint colors, you're looking at even more money there. And I can't say, in my opinion, that he's really worth the aftermarket prices. But Vector Prime, the new one, you can find on the shelves now or soon. And I think a lot better value for your money. So those are things that are always to consider. But overall, I am really happy with this figure. I think it's a great release. And if you're a fan of the character and fan of Cybertron, I would definitely recommend picking it up. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. And I'll see you all next video.